Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful. When the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Good morning, everybody. Well, it is June. Summer trading upon us. Interesting action overnight. Let's just go straight into that first. Yeah. Well. Where is my big chart? Yes. Okay. Well, overnight you can see, I guess looking at this chart doesn't matter too much, but there has been quite a bit of absorption up at the top. Here's the one that we really want to look at. So we can see overnight, well, first of all, yesterday, Friday, Donald Trump press conference, relatively a slap on the wrist, goes right back up to the highs. 30.58, just short of 60. Then overnight, gap down and close the gap. I don't know where we're going to go. This one is a hard pick. There's certainly a lot of back and forth. Why is that? That one candle is red. Oh, okay. We got to get below. We got to get below. What is it? 30.30 basically. 30.30 is the spot. 10-year actually opened up modestly higher, coming back, not moving that much, but yeah, the treasuries still seem to be uppity. And I think that this is still just beginning of the month rebalancing. So I don't know if it's a huge deal, but that's where we're at. Something wrong. Something seems wrong. Well, first of all, let's open up that. Here's this chart. I don't know if I need it or not. Something in the background. Maybe it's just a chair. Let's fix that. And let's fix, well, before we do that, let's fix the sound, because I don't have all of the funky advanced sound stuff set up anymore. So like this. Move everything back to the focus right. All right. And open up the text to speech. And move this chair back here. All right. Okay. And retry this. So, it's kind of interesting. I don't know where this is all going to go. I really don't. The market's open down. Largely, at least it appears, largely off of all of the rioting that we've seen in the United States over the weekend. Of course, it was really bad in Milwaukee, but it really, really flared up over the weekend. Even Salt Lake saw riots and car flippings, which to the people of Salt Lake is quite alarming. Let's say quite alarming. And a couple of things maybe I would keep in mind with this. All right. Like, first, let's talk about the dynamics of an issue like this, and then the possible economic impacts. Okay. So, first of all, we need to point out that this is not the first time that there have been riots over some sort of police excess issue, right? Usually it's been like, the police attack a person's home, or a person that is at home. They think they have a gun. They were mistaken. They were scared, and they made a mistake. And in the past, there's been riots over things like that, and the police, it'll go to trial, and the police get acquitted, and nothing happens. Now, this particular issue is about a specific instance where of a method that they use to detain somebody. So it's a little bit different. But again, the issue that you're going to see is that it is extremely difficult. In the past, from what I've seen, it's extremely difficult to get a conviction on police officers in a situation like this. Okay, this is an important thing to keep in mind, because the protesters say, "No justice, no peace." Well, the most likely scenario is that the cop will get off with. They might not even get murder 3 on him, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that things like this take a very, very long time. This probably isn't going to go to trial for a year. So are we going to have rioting for a year? Is that one of the things that you hear the protesters say is, "No justice, no peace," which is not really a sentiment that I can agree with. I think that we have a justice system, and that you have to go through the justice system, and to say no justice, no peace signifies that you believe that you already know what the truth is without having gone through that process, without having gone through a trial by jury and everything like that, and you're going to continue to riot until you get the outcome that you want. But the reason that it matters for our analysis here is, like, are we going to see rioting for a year? That is a possibility. So keep that in mind. Now, the economic impacts on it, well, I don't know. I mean, a lot of small businesses are being harmed from this, but a lot of small businesses were already harmed from this. I don't know if the actual impact on it is particularly bad, but what you might see is depressed consumer sentiment, depressed consumer sentiment for quite some time. And how is that going to affect numbers and the economy and the expected recovery? So that's one thing. Another thing is that I personally feel. So how do I start this? So for instance, I worked for Goldman Sachs back when they did the whole Occupy Wall Street thing was going on, and I remember here in Salt Lake, people came and protested in front of the office. I stood in the window and counted how many people there were. There was like not even a quarter as many people as the media said that there was. And but there's a certain group of people that are always doing this in Salt Lake, and I actually recognize some of these people, and like I will go and watch the news reports, and whenever there's a protest in Salt Lake, it's always like the same group of like 100 or 200 people, right? Well, when you had this one this weekend, crowd size looked like more in like the 1 or 2,000 range. And but then when the police said like disperse, the vast majority of people left, and then it was only that like core group of 100 people or so that really like put up a fight and didn't want to leave when the police said it was time, when they implemented a curfew and everything. So you've got a large group of people that were there for the spectacle, if anything, right? So there are people that have a lot more time on their hands to go out and protest. This is a thing. It's absolutely a thing. And so I believe that the GOP are extremely, extremely unlikely to extend unemployment benefits at the end of June. Or is it the end of July? I forget which. But so this is direct impact to the economy. So that's the next thing that I think we can keep in mind on that. As for today, well, we're going to have some interesting flows because the treasuries seem to be having some inflows. I don't know what the deal here is. My dollar's not showing up again. My understanding, though, is that the dollar index is down, is recovering a little bit, but largely down. And I think that some of this rebalancing may once the rebalancing is done, it may not be kind to the treasuries. And it may not be kind to the equities as well, but I'm not really sure. It kind of depends on how much demand there really ends up being from the market in general in June. Mm-hmm.
Kevin Wimmer says after today I think I have some sort of a gift. Every time I go for a quick scalp the market makes a big move. Every time I want to get the big move I get stopped out break even lol. Was long 3023 to 27.
The market totally
Kevin Wimmer
responds to
says feels bad.
sort of things. I really think that there are some algorithms out there that say, "Oh, look, there's some new person that's scalping here." I guess it makes it worth it to us to try and move the market like a few points to stop them out. That's possible. I don't know, but that just kind of puts a little couple of things in perspective, right? Doesn't it? Like, don't take a trade unless you really have flow coming on there that is favorable to you. Okay, so a lot of stuff coming in here. Here's the news. Oh, I forgot that we had news. Oh wait, why is it not?
Kevin Wimmer says maybe on some thinner markets. Don't think my two lots made any difference.
Yeah. So, oh wait, I don't know, but maybe it was Twitter. Maybe something came through. There was definitely news there. I swear there was some 6:30 news. There's ISM manufacturing today, so that's another thing we got. That's going to be a big factor here. Okay, I don't know what the news is, and I don't have my squawk, but something happened. Hmm. Hmm. So there was a pretty strong impulse up and a strong impulse back down when they all covered. So something definitely happened that triggered all of the market makers to take a trade, but no clear conclusion about it. And I don't see the thing. It definitely happened at 6:30. So there was definitely some news, but it's not on my calendar. Grab PMIs and ISMs later. Okay,
Kevin Wimmer
Gilead
says it can't be it
announces.
right 3 minutes ago. Amazon
No,
files for a $6 benchmark offering.
Gilead announces results from phase 3 trial of remdesivir in patients with moderate COVID-19. Okay, this is the market mover thing. I don't care to trade that. Phase 3 trial demonstrates 5-day treatment course of remdesivir resulted in significantly greater clinical improvement versus standard of care alone. It must not be that good because they're selling it. The treasuries are selling it too. Whoa, all the things are selling. This is weird. I'm not too particularly interested in the remdesivir. Like the market makes a big deal out of this, but I don't really think it's that big of a deal. But they're moving. That must be what it was. Oh, Donald Trump is tweeting too. Okay, that's important. I don't see any indication that there were any white supremacist groups mixing in. This is an Antifa organization. It seems that the first time we saw it in a major way was the Occupy Wall Street. It's the same mindset. Quoting somebody on Fox and Friends. Then he's also tweet. These were the people that trashed Seattle years ago. Who's paying for these people? I was appalled that 13 of Joe Biden's staff were donating money to bail people out in Minneapolis. They should have stayed in jail until this is over. Yeah, right? Well, it definitely appears to me that they're one of the main reasons why this is escalated in the way that it has. Just that he's out on the prowl because he hasn't said anything in a couple of days. I'm kind of expecting that at some point he's going to tweet something. It's kind of getting to the point where he has to respond to this all again. And it's going to have to be beyond just the, law and order Trump. That move in the treasuries, incredibly unexpected to me. I do see that the euro took a dive there on that.
Sunday Driver says world is on fire. Dow futures are positive. Go figure.
I mean, they're not really. Sunday. You come over and look at the top middle chart, you can see that the main reason that the markets were up was over Donald Trump's press conference regarding China ending up being mostly a slap on the wrist. And then the markets did open up lower off of the world being...
Kevin Wimmer says it's Sunday Driver -0, 51% right now.
Kind of depends on... One of the things you get is like... Depends on where your things reset. So for me over here, they reset on the extended session. So on the extended session, look, everything is down. Except for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is up a little bit. I guess the 60 is a little bit positive, but it doesn't all going to be like that for very long. The euro going negative might be a bad thing. And the 6J going negative. That means that people are piling into the dollar.
Kevin Wimmer says I like this site to get a quick look. If it only shows like 3 things you have to click on. Mehr Anzeigen.
It's a German say, huh? Ungefähr.
Sunday Driver says dollar strength indicates why gold is lower at the open.
Yes, and gold is lower.
Kevin Wimmer says NVM, weiter Kurs Anzeigen.
Goldman Sachs rolls back its pessimistic outlook for American stocks. Let's read this. They rolled back their prediction that it would slump to the 2,400 level and now see downside risks capped at 2,750 in the S&P 500. The benchmark could even rally to 3,200. Our previous 3-month target of 2,400 is unlikely to be realized. Monetary and fiscal policy support limit likely downside to roughly 10%. Investor positioning is oscillated between neutral and low, and it is possible 5% upside catalyst. I see, because they're saying people are still short. Man, they're selling it pretty strongly. Even though I don't really see maybe if I had my squawk right now, that would give me a better finger on what's going on, but
Kevin Wimmer says.
Yeah, there's the Gilead announce. Is there something in there? I mean, they're saying that there's phase 3 results. I'm assuming they're good. No, maybe they're not good. Oh, odds of improvement in clinical status with 10-day course of remdesivir were trending towards, but not reaching statistical significance. So they're saying that it works, but not that well. Hmm. Hmm. Overall, though, I just don't think that remdesivir is really a significant thing. I mean, I don't think that the market is rallying because of a medical cure. I don't think that really affects the long-term thing. I think that this is just like Twitter robots.
Sunday Driver says remdesivir is the drug Big Pharma wants to work. Big money to be made. HCQ is cheap, so they hate it.
Is it remdesivir? 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 Is that how you know what? I haven't watched CNBC talk about it, so I don't know how it's actually supposed to be pronounced. Remdesivir. The Google thinks that it's pronounced remdesivir. Beta for hedge funds creeping up. Just scrolling down, seeing if there's anything in here I'm missing. This marketeer guy must be a European because it's way more stuff. Okay, got Jeffrey tweeted. Let's see here. Upcoming webcast
Sunday
June
Driver
9th.
says I think it's remdesivir.
Remdesivir. That's the way that I've been saying it, yeah. To everyone who is upset about the way things are going, I have some news. You can vote a different regime into office from top to bottom if you want. Stop complaining and do it. And here's another issue is like
Kevin Wimmer says remdesivir.
I was so the other day I was looking on Facebook, and somebody was saying, well, the thing that we need, the policy that we need that's going to fix this all, because they're protesting in Salt Lake, right? And a lot of people that I know were protesting. The thing that we need is a civilian oversight board. Well, guess what? They have a civilian oversight board in Salt Lake. So, like, there's a real question into what do you actually want to do? What is the policy that you think is going to be so effective? You know what I mean? This is a problem. You vote with Joe Biden in, are they really going to do anything? Sleepy Joe Biden's people are so radical left that they are working to get the anarchists out of jail and probably more. Joe doesn't know anything about it. He is clueless, but they will be the real power, not Joe. They will be calling the shots, big tax increases for all. Plus, that's not necessarily the line of argument that I would be pushing, Mr. President, because if anything, I think that you want to be pinning it on that he will 100% be in charge, because having some random guy that doesn't know what he's doing and isn't really in charge and is just a shadow puppet for the deep state probably doesn't sound so bad to a lot of people. To the people that are looking to get Donald Trump out of office, I think that they would take that one. There was like no buying through here. And the book is all jacked up. The 30-year is actually still has buyers on it, but cannot explain this market action. Donald Trump tweets November 3rd. What happens November 3rd? Oh, that's the election, right? Yeah. Well, it appears to me that despite Donald Trump being silent the past few days, that they don't really have a unified strategic plan to deal with this. Yeah, I could be wrong. But that's what I'm seeing right now. This is kind of interesting. Reading through, seeing if there's anything. It just seems kind of weird. Well, you know what? I think we should expect to see a lot of bizarre moves right now. Because the market does just really, I'm not sure they really know what they want to do. And it might be really odd action until the open. You know?
Kevin Wimmer says I hate unexpected news, especially when you are in a trade.
Right. That's where that's was like one of the things that I've been trying to emphasize here, right? Is the market should force you to get into a trade, right?
Sergio Ortega says morning everybody.
Like when we go in and we take a trade based off of purely technical analysis, and we say, okay, we're overbought on this RSI or this line, or the order flow says that we're starting to get some slight trending down, how strong actually is that? And the reality is that very often it's not very strong at all. And so if something comes in that is like a larger piece of news, then you're just going to get completely creamed. Wouldn't it make sense to just only take the trade when that larger piece of news comes in? When you are seeing flow, you are seeing fundamental dynamics that give you a very, very high, or at least you have a very, very high confidence in which direction it's going to go. With this remdesivir thing, it's probably not a very good example, I guess, because I don't see that piece of news as giving me a super clear direction on where we're going to go. I'm a little bit surprised that we have moved as far as we have. I guess you could fade it. I guess that means fade it, maybe. I don't know. By the way, why is this column over here? I think that we want it over here, right? No, we want it over here.
Kevin Wimmer says I remember 2 weeks ago I was long in the Amini with a 4-tick stop and like 5 to 6 ticks in my favor. Then boom news and I get slippaged with a 12-tick loss instead of 4.
You get a 12 tick loss. Oh man, that's really bad. What was the news on that one? It'll definitely take the thing that's been kind of weird is I went through a time period like when I was doing really poorly, like want to say October, November, when like the new trade deal stuff started coming through for Great Britain, it was like I would be in a trade and I would catch, and something like that would happen, and I was never catching them. Whereas before I would end up being lucky very often, more often than not. Now lately I'm finding that I'm just not in the market when those things happen, and then I try and trade them after the fact. And that seems to be working pretty well for me. This morning though, this flow is
Kevin
confusing.
Wimmer says something China related. It was so fast even break even wouldn't have saved me.
Yeah. That's super awful. Minnesota officials believe white supremacists attending demonstrations in Twin Cities, official says. Now, this is another one that I find really bizarre. People are trying to blame all of it on white supremacists, and it's like, have you seen any of the video? Like, so here in Utah, people were pointing out there was one guy, they showed a picture of one guy that had a tattoo on his shoulder that is a white supremacist tattoo. So there was one person there, and there was this other guy that his car got flipped. There was this guy that was yelling at the crowd, "All lives matter," and they started like messing with him. And according to him, he black people just started attacking him. And so the video or the I was kind of watching it live. You can really see it, and then I've seen other angles from it since then. This guy was like, when people were arguing with him, he felt threatened or something, and so he was showing them a knife and a crossbow, and so he took the crossbow out and started aiming it at people. And at that point, protesters came in and they started beating him, and they beat him up pretty bad. And the police came and saved him, and then they flipped his car. So that was the second car that got flipped and burnt in Salt Lake. And people have gone and found his Facebook since then. And he's not like a KKK or anything like that, but he was definitely sharing like, I would say, white supremacist agitation news types of
Eric
stuff.
Aegis says, are you talking about Ramboomer?
I don't know what you would call it, man. He was absolutely crazy. So the thing that's so weird was that like an hour later, you could see him walking around behind the police line. He came up to look at his car. I don't know if the police like allowed him to look at the damage or something, but he came and looked at his car and then started arguing with protesters again. And then the police kind of took him back. The guy was clearly off of his rocker. So everybody is using this guy as all you see. It's the white supremacists that are causing all the problems. Well, first of all, I don't really think that it's justified to flip any. It's ever justified to flip somebody's car and set it on fire. That's just not okay. And to sit down and say that that's the sort of punishment that we should dole out to people on a regular basis is just there's real problems with that in a civil society. So that's not okay, right, guys? But then the larger thing is this guy is like there's something wrong in his head. Something wrong in his head. So I don't think that you can just you can. I mean, basing a second wave of a movement off of a crazy off of a crazy guy agitating you is really a wise thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, he was a really weird guy. I'm thinking back if I remember seeing him because I remember a couple of years ago.
Air Cages says the market has proven that literally the whole country can burn to the ground and markets will still pump.
Maybe. I went to Donald Trump. What do we call it? Rally in Utah back during the election, and I remember seeing a guy that was old and was kind of arguing with people like that, and that I thought was crazy, and nobody wanted anything to do with it. And I'm thinking back and wondering if it was that guy, or maybe I'm just creating false memories in my head because it's so very, very vague. He's definitely crazy though. Ocasio-Cortez rips de Blasio over response to police cruiser driving into a crowd of protesters. Yeah, so this is another thing, is look at what happens in New York, because New York really has the longest history of this stuff. They were really super upset about the police car kind
Air
of
Cages says he's now
revving the
famous.
gas when the protesters were trying to stop it. But like, come on, they were throwing Molotov cocktails on police cars with police in it and flipping police cars. So like, what did you expect them to do? Like, they think that their life is in danger. Nobody got hurt. But the people in New York are particularly more triggered about that particular incident than anything else. So I would say keep an eye on New York if you really want to get a good idea of where things are going, because they're going to tend to be the leaders on this sort of stuff, because the real leader, like the Al Sharptons, that's where they're at. White House Press Secretary McCanney says White House to hold press briefing at 2 p.m. So we're going to have another press briefing at noon. Probably Donald Trump is going to address the rioting and so forth. It's my guess.
Air Cages says how to stop this, Seth? When is it gonna stop?
You're talking about the markets pumping? Well, I don't know. You know what? So I read something.
Sunday Driver says Mayor de Blasio's daughter is Antifa.
I was kind of starting to think this, and we were kind of starting to get onto this particular point a little bit last week. But then I saw something on Zero Hedge that I think really kind of confirmed what we were saying. So on interest rates, remember way back when we were saying they need to raise interest rates, and that they didn't raise interest rates fast enough. You got to understand that there's kind of this curve on the low end of low interest rates that the market has not, or let's not call them the market, that the Federal Reserve and central banking community has not quite yet figured out, and they're starting to figure it out. And that is that low interest rates actually depress demand in certain ways. So think about what has been one of the main drivers behind this pump up. People are putting their money into the stock market. Now, I wonder why. Why is that? So if you got, I think you have a family and everything, you get like $2,400 or something like that, right? So if you have $2,400 to spend, what are you going to spend it on? Okay. Well, if you're a dumb person, you're going to go out and you're going to buy a new TV. But if you're a smart person, and it seems like a really good portion of the middle class is pretty smart, you're going to save some of it away. So how are you going to do that? Well, they're buying stocks. Now, I would say if you have a business, you have something going on that is or a really good idea for a business, now is the time, man. Like, now is the time to invest in your business and build it up. When the competition is low and you're getting money like that and the money is easy, start your business. Start your business. It would be the best thing, but are people doing that? They're not. Okay. So why stocks? Well, I think that you put it into stocks because you're worried. I think you put it into stocks because you're worried that you're not going to have retirement, that it's not going to be there when you get there. And honestly, like, think about it, if you had a pension, for instance, okay? Like these guys with pensions, pension plan in Japan has to come over and buy U.S. treasuries and only get a 0.5%
Kevin
interest
Wimmer
rate.
says, I don't think this is the right time to start my bat soup business.
Oh, Kevin. No, yeah, I would forget about that bat soup business idea. No, you're only getting 0.5%. How does your pension fund keep running under that circumstance? So anybody that has a pension fund, you basically, that you're not going to get your money back, and you're going to have to invest more, and that means that you're going to spend less on other things, right? Now, it's good for people to put it into stocks. And if it was all just going into stocks, then that would be great. But obviously, that's not the case. A lot of money is just going in the wayside because there's less demand overall because of it, right? So this is the result of low interest rates. Low interest rates at a certain point depress demand. And according to the graph that I was seeing, it does so at anything under 4%, which is quite concerning, isn't it? So we've got this thing, and they're all pumping money. All of the central banks are doing it, and we're finding out that it creates deflation. It is a deflationary pressure in an environment where all of the pressures have been deflationary. That's a real problem. What do you do?
Sunday Driver says, preach. People in the real world have always known this.
Well, I think that everybody knows, because we look at the way that the market reacts, that this monetary policy is not exactly 100% in line with what they're saying it's doing, because they keep underrunning their target. But remember, when they were underrunning the target, we were saying, well, they need to keep interest rates lower. Now we're basically saying that in order to get back to normal, they have to increase interest rates up to 4%. We weren't even getting to 3 before, right? Like before, it was like a big deal when we were over 2. So how do you deal with that?
Kevin Wimmer says White House to hold press briefing at 2 p.m. So how long is this from now?
That's like 5 hours from now. It's 7 right now. That's 5 hours. Anyways, if you have to get the interest rates back over 4%, that's a problem. Is there a point that comes at which you just have to start increasing the interest rates and regardless of the damage that it's going to do to the economy. I think that may come. I'm starting to wonder if that's going to come. That in the next expansion, that they're going to have to increase rates along with the expansion, and that it will be quite detrimental to the economic recovery. But that's basically their only choice. CNN Politics, Joe Biden is in one of the best positions for any challenger since scientific polling began. Which is incredibly bizarre. Don't you think? I don't know, man. I mean, it may be the case that there really is more
Minor
anti-Trump.
says check out Nerve.
Why are you talking about that? It may be the case that there's more anti-Trump sentiment among swing voters than we realize. But I am really skeptical about any turnout. All of these numbers are going to be based off of turnout, and I really don't think you can predict the turnout in this election, man. It's going to be weird. But can you imagine Joe Biden being your president? Okay. The whole thing is just weird. I'm still sitting here thinking I'm not sure if Joe Biden is even going to be the nominee. Like, somebody is going to organize a hit job on him, or I mean, he's said and done so many dumb things.
Kevin Wimmer says, do you like Joe Biden more than the rest of the Democratic candidates except Pete?
Oh man, I mean, I guess from the perspective of like the policies.
Sunday Driver says they will throw the election by way of mail-in ballots.
Maybe. The mail-in ballots definitely affects the numbers, but I don't think that they affect the numbers in the way that people seem to expect for president, and I think it's hard to predict because it boosts depressed turnout. Like in Utah, Democrat turnout is extremely depressed, and mail-in voting increases the number of Democrat voters. Right? In a swing state, what is the result? I don't know. But in terms of what he claims his policy is and everything, I suppose I would say that I would prefer him to the other candidates. But in terms of his ability to win an election, I think he's one of the weakest options they had. I think that if you had a moderate that was actually a strong option, he would have run away with it.
Hire a retired bald hitman, codename Agent 47, who trades futures to do the job.
So.
Who knows? Thinking face.
No, but I don't think so. Maybe they'll take him out before he becomes because from some of the things that he said and the whole sexual assault lawsuit, and I think other people are coming out, and I tell you what, you think that things are crazy now isn't always the worst in an election year, and it's going to be even worse when we get to October. The October surprises that you're going to see is going to be unreal. Yeah. Well, they've been doing nothing but selling this whole way down. It's not like even close to like overnight lows, so I'm not gonna treat it as a big deal. I don't understand the change in the flows, but I'm not sure that they matter.
Kevin Wimmer says, I want to know who is going to be his vice president pick.
Well, the rumor is that Kamala Harris is in the lead. So this is a problem. This is a real problem for them, isn't it? Like, they hate Kamala Harris because she was a prosecutor and she didn't do things the way that they wanted. And the people that are anti-police corruption and everything like that, she assisted in that in LA, according to them. So, in fact, if I were to look at it, does anybody have a connection or things in their past they would be unsavory to the Black Lives Matter crowd that in the current political environment would be toxic? It's Kamala Harris. But who are you going to pick in her place? Because you're screwed. Because if you don't pick a black person, then you really are. So then you could try and pick that. Who was that lady from South Carolina or Georgia or whatever that lost and was campaigning really hard to be the nominee? You really want her? She has no experience. And Joe Biden is old. That would be a real drag on your candidacy.
Kevin Wimmer says Elizabeth Warren wearing blackface.
There you go. Maybe. I mean, and here's the issue: is with that Charlemagne thing, where Joe Biden said, if I have to convince you to vote for me, you're not really black. That is a real liability, and I think that off of that he's basically obligated to choose a black person for his vice president now. He's basically obligated at this point. He couldn't just do a woman
Kevin
anymore.
Wimmer says it is time for Barack Obama to identify as a woman.
I guess he could pick Barack Obama's wife. That might be an option. Does she show up unpredicted as a choice? Let's go look. That would be funny. I know what you're going to say. Don't say it. Don't say it. I know you're thinking it. Presidential election. Will Michelle Obama run in 2020?
RJ Wheel says I was. Kevin Wimmer says Hill to the Clinton baby. Sunday Driver says Michelle or Michael. RJ Wheel says oh no.
There's got to be a market for this. There's got to be a market for this. Vice. Women VP in 2020. Will the Dem VP nominee be a woman?
RJ Wheel says Seth, I saw your mayor on CNN. She seemed impressive.
I think that she totally fucked up. You know what? So you get this thing where there's like, there are people that are articulate, and it seems like she's articulate, and that's why she won. But they should have known. They should have known based off of everything else that protests have been going violent, and that there was a high probability of vandalism, and they knew that there was going to be a protest, and they didn't send anybody out there to do anything. And so they had flipped the car and done all
RJ
sorts of
Wheel
other
says,
things.
I just thought she was impressively attractive.
Oh, okay. Anyways, so there was no police around to keep an eye on the protest. And then when it came in, oh my gosh, they called literally every police officer on the Wasatch Front down there and the National Guard. They mobilized it, and they cleared the protest out when the curfew came, no problem. And there was no problems yesterday because the curfew went till Monday. But they kicked into action. I tell you what, if the other states reacted the way that the state of Utah did, then it would be over already. But the mayor of Salt Lake in particular is going to take a lot of heat because she screwed up. And of course, people in Utah already didn't like her because she's a Democrat, right? This is like the downtown Salt Lake is the only place that votes Democrat.
RJ Wheel says agree. Seth.
Yeah. I'm surprised that they don't have a market for who. Oh, wait. Yeah, they do. It's right here. 2020 Democratic VP. Okay, so of course Kamala Harris is on top. But where's Michelle Obama? Oh, there she is. 5 cents. Want to take that one? Susan Rice. That one's interesting. But there's this other lady that is much higher on there that I've never heard of. Keisha Lance Bottoms. Can you believe that they were thinking about picking Amy? That would have been really... It's kind of one of those things. Like every person that you go through, Stacey Abrams is the one that was talking about. Val Demings, who's that?
RJ
Let's look
Wheel
that up.
says Klobuchar is finished.
Oh yeah, that she because
RJ
she
Wheel
was
says I like Val Demings.
because Klobuchar was like let that cop off in specifically or something, right? So yeah, that's a no. That's an absolute no.
RJ Wheel says Klobuchar kneecapped.
Former law enforcement officer serving for Florida. Oh my gosh. Wow. Only 14?
Kevin Wimmer says lol wait, you can vote for Joe Biden as vice president. That seems about right. President Joe Biden and Vice President Joe Biden thinking face.
That is surprising. Hold on a second.
Kevin Wimmer says your site had Joe Biden there.
Yeah, that's not gonna work. I'm gonna have to do more research, but that sounds like a no-brainer pick. You can wait to vote for Joe Biden as vice president, right? That's funny. Okay, police say man brandishing bow and arrow at Salt Lake City protest is being screened for charges. So he was walking around and he went and messed with the protesters. I think that they were just letting him go back and see the damage to his car, but they did charge him. So, or it looks like they are going to charge him.
RJ Wheel says what? Demings.
Yeah. Val Demings. She is a former law enforcement officer, so we'd have to look at her history. But if she's a law enforcement and she's in Florida, which is, I guess, a swing state, that helps. That sounds like a strong pick. That sounds like a stronger pick than...
RJ Wheel says I like her.
I've never heard of her before, but that sounds like a better pick than Kamala Harris. And at this point, you basically, if you assume that he has no choice but to pick a black woman, then that's a really likely choice. Oh, really?
RJ Wheel says she was one of the Congress reps on impeachment trial.
I might put money on that.
Kevin Wimmer says plot twist. It's gonna be Rihanna.
It's gonna be Rihanna. What?
Stickball says how are you, Seth?
You're doing okay. I'm kind of feeling like today could be a big day for an important day for the markets, but it's kind of
Sunday Driver says she is a lightweight. She's also in law enforcement, which is bad for BLM wing of Dem Party.
Well, yeah, that's why you would have to look at her record and what she says, because if she's running around and saying I was in law enforcement and there needs to be real reform and police officers, they really abuse their powers and I was a good cop, and she can back up that she was a good cop, then that could be an asset. And of course, somebody's always going to come in and say she arrested me once and she was mean. But I think that probably the amount that they would gain off of it would be better than the attack, than the October surprise attack, especially when its vice president is not going to affect people very much, right? So like you get the benefits of her being in law enforcement and being able to tackle that issue for the campaign.
Wheel says I get it Sunday, but they all are bad for BLM except Stacey. And Stacey is too left, too inexperienced. Kevin Wimmer says she didn't like my Reddit post. Bah.
I don't know. There's got to be some negative opinions out there about her. I mean, I haven't heard of her before, so They were leaning towards Kamala. Was the last report that we heard, right? They were leaning towards Kamala Harris. So they found some balance at 28.5, huh? You know, we've been this balance area at 29.5. They've been doing that for a very long time. Oh, look, she's on the
Stick
news
Val
right
says
now.
S just hit 3,030 and reversed, which is a strike price with like 2.7 I open interest of call options.
They're going to show her. Val Demings, who is a representative. Is she a senator? She must be she must be in the House. Otherwise, they would call her Senator Val Demings, right? Accused Donald Trump of exacerbating tensions in the U.S. as demonstrations spread in response to the death of George Floyd. Rachel Maddow show. Demings said that the president demonstrated he was unfit for. Come on, say something useful. The president has had opportunity after opportunity to rise to an occasion in this country, and he's failed every time, and yet he's demonstrated that he's totally unfit. Wow. She should be saying something like, "I was a police officer."
RJ
and
Wheel says Congresswoman.
There's a problem here with X, and here's X, Y, Z things that we should do. Maybe she said that, but they're not report that because they don't find that too interesting. But for our analysis, that would be the most interesting thing, wouldn't it? Let's see what she's saying in the news. Oh, there you go. Vogue thinks that she might be the best choice. It's no exaggeration to say that Joe Biden owes his status as a presumptive presidential nominee to the Democratic Party to black voters. Okay, so they're saying the same thing that I am, that he basically would benefit his campaign after his screw up. This time, let's see here. What is Ransquawk posting? This time last week, the assumption was phase 1 would be intact, but China's actions show its trade commitments can be tweaked. Based on political narrative, it asks a question about the demand side of the equation. And these questions come amid the protests in the U.S., which are also posing challenges to the reopening narrative, which has underpinned the sharp rise in stocks recently. Sleepy Joe Biden's people are so radical left, they are working to get anarchists out of jail. Donald Trump retweeted that again. Okay. Anyways, back to the story. She said she has spoken to members of the Floyd family and said, once again, we heard the words and they heard the words. I can't breathe. It was an act of brutality. So elemental, it did
Stick
more than
Val
deny
says
one
Seth,
black
how's
person.
America? Seems like you guys are having riots all over the country now.
It's a fucking disaster over here right now, dude. It denied of him his very humanity. It denied him of his life. So we can go back into that again a little bit later because this is going to end up being more complicated than I think people think. Biden also addressed more systemic issues that spiked the violent protests.
Stick Val says, is it really that bad as the media makes it look?
Okay, so Harris was out there protesting and stuff. Val checks a lot of boxes, and the more you put it all on paper, the more she starts to score at the top of the list. My fellow brothers and sisters in blue, what the hell are you doing? She wrote a Washington Post op-ed.
Imagination of Lurid says Trump's re-election does not seem as sure as it was at the start of 2020.
I cannot begin to understand how any officer could ignore the painful pleas we heard from Floyd or anyone else suffering. Well, I don't know. How much did he resist? I mean, I don't know. Here's the thing. We'll go into that later. As law enforcement officers, we took an oath to protect and serve, and those who forget or who never understood that oath in the first place must go.
Someone in here was talking about an Andrews pitchfork strategy. I'd like to
includes
talk to
those who
whoever
would
said that
stand.
if they're here today.
Demings may be one of those once-in-a-lifetime politicians, a gifted
Stick
orator.
Bell says, can you
Okay.
show the e-mini CVD?
I don't know if I know enough to put money on it, but I feel like that she sounds like a really strong candidate on paper just from what we were reading so far. I'm just a little surprised that I've never heard of her before. That was too far. There we go. So here's I mentioned this earlier, but my understanding, maybe we should go and confirm this, but my understanding is that the maneuver that was used to subdue Floyd was something that they teach to those officers, and that's how they are told to deal with that kind of a situation. So the argument that the police officer is going to make is that this is a standard maneuver that they use all the time, that there was no malice intended upon the individual, that he resisted arrest, and that this was the only method that we had to subdue him, and that he's done it many times before and it never killed anybody. But in this particular instance, Floyd had an underlying health problem that caused a severe issue, and probably we shouldn't be doing this maneuver anymore, but I didn't know any better. That's what he's going to say. I think that sounds to me like the most logical defense. In that particular case, then the argument becomes, but then you didn't take your knee off of him. But that could be enough to take it down from, murder 3 to manslaughter, right? Can you show the E-mini CVD? Well, I don't. Or do you mean CFD? Because I ain't doing none of that CFD bullshit. They are not legal in the United States for a reason, folks. And I know you probably don't live in the United States, but I would just sit down for a second and say, why doesn't
Stick
the
Bell
U.S.
says volume
government...
delta.
Oh, the volume delta. Right here. Do you see it right here? Negative 1,000 for the session. Where was that? Here's one that doesn't reset. Oh, actually, it does reset. So I guess that's negative 1,000 since I've started looking at it. But for the full session, it's up 4,000.
RJ Wheel says he's got the lawyer that got the Minnesota cop off that shot the guy on a traffic stop while the girlfriend Instagrammed it live.
Yeah. Well, so I was watching, I don't know who it was that recommended that I watch it, but several months ago, one of you guys said, oh, you should watch Trial by Media on Netflix. So I watched the first 3 episodes. I quite enjoyed it. And my wife was like super interested in it as well, which usually she didn't care about that stuff. But I think that the courtroom drama thing kind of speaks to her for some reason. And the story that we were watching about yesterday was that the cops thought that a guy had a gun and they shot him 41 times.
Sunday Driver says medical examiner says Floyd was not killed by way of asphyxiation.
They shot this guy 41 times. He was sitting on his doorstep. They said, police, put your hands up. And he was searching into his pocket to try and get something. And the police officers thought that they had seen a gun, or at least that's what they testified. And it was like an open, nobody denied the evidence of the case or anything like that. It was just, they went to trial. The police officers said, we thought we saw a gun. He wasn't cooperating. He was searching for his pocket despite us telling him to get down. And so we shot him 41 times. And guess what? The cops got off. The cops were acquitted. So this is an issue here. I think the thing is we're talking about systemic racism. I mean,
Steve Bell says in the West our legal system is separate from politics. This isn't China. We can't just
Yeah.
demand someone to be locked up.
Yeah, so we can talk about systemic racism. Maybe that's a problem and maybe that's not. I don't think that there's really a very good way to determine how much systemic racism it actually plays a part in these kinds of issues because, if you ask somebody, are you racist? They're going to say no. And a lot of civil rights activists would say that people can be racist and not even realize it. Here comes the open, by the way, in 30 seconds. So how do you quantify it? You can't. But I think that they're running into an issue that is much, much bigger than systemic racism, and that is that people in the United States have decided that they're willing to put up with a little bit of police abuse of power in exchange for safety. They give cops a benefit of the doubt, overwhelmingly so. And when these cases go to the court, to a jury, the jury tends to acquit. And I don't know if that's what's going to happen in this instance, but you're starting to see the beginnings of a defense. He wasn't killed from asphyxiation. He wouldn't have died if he didn't have an underlying healthcare problem. That police precinct teaches the officers to use that method. If he gets, I think you would still get like man 2, but if they got man 2, like how upset would people be, right? But this is the larger issue with the thing. Guys, there's a legal system in the United States. You can't just throw people in jail because
Imagination of
the
Lurid
court of
says imagine
public
the riots
opinion.
if he gets acquitted.
You can't just go this is when there was that case. This is what Giuliani said, and he took a ton of heat for it, but he's right. Like, let's just let it go to trial and see, and let the system do what it's supposed to, because we have a system in the United States for a reason, and you can't just skip the system. Ooh, difficult question to answer, because I don't think that what the cop did was right, for sure. I mean, it's very upsetting. But the more that I look at it, the more I'm like, but there's a certain way that this is likely to go, and it's not going to be the way that people like. Let's see here. Donald Trump tweeting about polling. Biden supports often new Wisconsin WP poll. That must be new Washington Post poll. Biden has a big lead, 10 points over Trump with registered voters nationally, but also signs of softness in his support. 87% of Trump voters say they'll definitely vote Trump versus Biden, 74.
Stick
I'm
Bell
surprised
says
it's
no
74.
to statue of the blindfolded lady with scales.
Trump is leading in all swing states, heavily biased Democrat poll, just like 2016. Biggest enthusiasm lead ever, says Donald Trump. Okay, so now remember that we've got some PMIs and stuff, right? So it's 747. So in 15 minutes, we got market
Lucas
manufacturing, and then there's
says he could have a hard time in civil
ISMs.
court.
Maybe. Oh yeah, in civil court for sure. In civil court, he's screwed, right? They're going to get money out of him for sure, for sure. No question. I think you're right. That's a good point, Lucas. But I don't know if that's relevant to how it's going to affect the country right now, because that's years down the line. What's going to affect the country now is that
Lucas
people
says
are going to
good
riot
morning,
for a
Seth.
year.
RJ
Good
Wheel
morning,
says
Lucas.
so far it's tracking very similar to Hillary versus Trump in 16. Stick Bell says no, wouldn't it be the employer that is liable?
I don't know how that works with the police officer. It may be the case that the city is liable and that they get money from the city. Yes, I think you're probably right. Especially if the city is training their police to use that. If the city is training their police to use that, then they have a real liability issue there for sure. And their lawyers probably wouldn't even let it go to court, but the people would insist. Probably. Like the lawyers would try to do everything that they can to settle, but there's no way that they would be able to settle for enough to placate.
RJ Wheel says he'd have liability insurance via employ.
It might be.
Stickball says, yeah, you would have to sue the city and the city sues the employee.
So even though we have taken a move down so far, the overall cumulative delta is up. So it still looks to me like that they want to try and close the gap. But yeah, but the problem is still that it's not going to go to trial for a year. So it's definitely still going to be a lingering issue for the election. And then you have to go into the analysis of how much of the unrest is agitators and how long is it going to continue? Because I tell you what, the people that were at the protest here in Salt Lake over the weekend, they aren't planning on going anywhere. They're already got events planned for today. They're going to go down to the city county building and protest today. I doubt that there will be nearly as many people. But then you get into this like, okay, but how many people are like out of work and have nothing better to do? You get this group of people that are just going to live as protesters until they get new jobs.
Imagination of Lurid says hasn't even peaked yet. Emo
hasn't even peaked yet. Well, I would be extremely surprised if in Utah the next protest ends up having more people, because there's going to be a lot of people that are just there for curiosity's sake. But it's the same group of people that's probably going to die down there.
Stickball says price constantly chopping below 3,030. Keep an eye on that level.
Is from everything that I've ever seen on this sort of a thing, once they start calling in the National Guard, that's the end of it. Some states really should have already called in the National Guard, and they're not. Whatever. National Guard and a curfew. Even LA was doing a curfew, but just for the night, they're going to let them come back out and all protest again today. And then, again, that's the question. Like, today will be an important day to watch how much they do, because probably the protests aren't going to be as big as they were, but that'll tell you how many people actually have jobs and have to do stuff and don't. One of the things that I noticed in the Utah protests is that they were all kids. Almost all of them were like high school kids and stuff. So they probably do have the time to kill.
Stickball says I heard they sent in military police.
I don't think that that's happened yet. They called up military police, but I don't think that
Imagination of Lurid says foreign intelligence are throwing gas on the fire like CIA did in Hong Kong.
That might be the true. That there might. So you're saying that China is trying to exacerbate things? I don't know if they're like directly involved. I mean, I don't have any evidence of that, at least. Certainly seems like you would almost have to expect it, though, huh? I'm going to go for that low of the day. They're still being kind of sketchy around there, like they're going to bounce.
Imagination of Lurid says not direct but psyops.
Psyops. China's definitely been playing the media game for sure, yes. Yes. Well, so another thing I should point out is that the right-wing news websites this morning are crowing that they have inside information on Antifa, that Antifa has been infiltrated, and that they have extracted all sorts of records, including lawyers that are on hand pro bono and funding sources, and that they're just going to completely gut Antifa, and that Antifa is the whole problem here. I'm a little skeptical, because oftentimes they'll say that they got something and then it ends up being not as big of a deal as they think. But let's see what happens. That could be a thing. That could be a thing that really changes stuff. Because here's another thing that you got to keep in mind. We automatically assume it's a protest. It's a black guy that hurts Republicans, etc., etc., etc. Donald Trump hasn't said anything about that. What happened to Floyd was okay. In fact, he's quite the opposite. He's expressed a lot of sympathy. He called the family. He's upset by it as well. I think that Donald Trump is on the sides of the protesters that sometimes police abuse their power, but that we shouldn't riot. That's going to be his thing. So I don't know. That's going to play a factor here too.
Imagination of Lurid says you heard about the anonymous leak.
Yeah, it was a leak that there's people talking about it on Twitter, but they haven't. When I was looking at it, they hadn't posted the goods yet, if you will. In fact, I have them open over here. We should refresh and see.
Imagination of Lurid says.
Now, if you trying to post
Stickball
link there,
says I really
won't see
hope
it.
no one starts shooting the police over there. Oh god, that would be bad.
Oh, it's already happened.
Send the National Guard in before that happens. Police aren't trained to deal with something like that.
It's already happened, man. There was a police officer that was killed, apparently. It's not really getting widespread coverage. One of the problems that you got right now is that so much stuff is going on that nobody can keep track of all. Like, people are only paying attention to what's going on in their local area right now. Like you've seen, I've said a lot of stuff about what happened at the Salt Lake City protest. People aren't even aware of everything that's been going on. There's stories of there was a shop owner that was trying to defend his shop. Apparently, he went a little crazy, and so the protesters beat him up and knocked him out, and that was a really disgusting video.
Stickball says, where was this?
This one, I think, was in Minnesota. There was another case.
Imagination of Lurid says in a few states, there was a shooting at cops in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Yeah, I know for sure there's been shootings, but
Sunday
I was
Driver
also
says,
reading
didn't
that
you
there
used to
was
live in
somebody
Chicago?
died. I didn't live in Chicago. I've been in New York for periods of time, but I've lived in Missouri, but I've pretty much lived in Utah my whole life. The other story that was really disturbing was that these guys tried to stop a UPS truck, which this has happened. Like, a guy got killed being dragged out of his truck once, right? So he just drove off, and a protester got stuck under the wheel and died from that. That was quite disturbing to watch, because they're trying to stop the car, and of course he's not going to stop because they were trying to attack his car. They're like, oh, no, wait, we don't want to kill you anymore. Just stop so that this guy is, oh my gosh. How messed up. How messed up. Well, I don't see anything up at the top of their page about this. Yeah, I don't see anything new about it. So we'll see. If Antifa came out that there was like really serious stuff, like real serious insurrection, and they were able to make a good case and that came out, that would definitely have an impact. But back to the point, it's not automatically it's not automatically a bad thing for Donald Trump. It's kind of more how he reacts to it, right? He says, we need to not riot, but I'm with you guys on this. That kind of changes the landscape, doesn't it? So how are the treasuries doing? The treasuries look like they're just sitting here at 28.5. Quite some time now. Well, it was the beginning of the month, but I think that they did all of their rebalancing on. There was a lot of activity on Friday, I thought. And this open hasn't really given us any really good clues about where we're going. They're almost certainly waiting for that manufacturing news, aren't they? Buyers are winning out at the moment, though. Oh, I forgot. Man, we've been doing a lot of talking today, haven't we? Goldman continues to argue that short-term returns are skewed to the downside or neutral at best thanks to the risk of an economic earnings trade or political hiccup to the normalization trend. And, of course, the move before the markets open on remdesivir. Okay, so here the market manufacturing PMI came through. It was in line with expectations at 39.8. And they must be liking that. So that's a pretty powerful move. There's Friday's open. Should delete that. Why is there a period there? LS trade. Which market should I trade? Forex education. Well, of course, if they were saying you should trade Forex, then that would be. Sounds like junk.
Stickball says on the news here, I saw a truck drive into a massive
Oh, yeah,
crowd.
I
Lol.
saw that one as well.
Stickball says Trump says he will be coming to visit Australia for sure if he wins this upcoming election.
Well, yesterday's close at 3,042. Eli Lilly gives patients first doses in trial of new coronavirus treatment, reports The Hill. Anthony Crudele is posting morning market thoughts on his Instagram. Good deal. I tell you what, I'm trying to do like my market recap at the end of the day, which is going okay. I think we'll continue to do it again this week, but we'll have to see how it goes. Continue to see how it goes for a month or so, maybe. But when I look at it, so like this weekend, I was like, well, we're gonna do a video on Ninja Trader strategies, right? But after everything that happened, I was like, nobody wants to go and freaking watch that on a Monday. Ain't nobody gonna watch that. Now is not the week to post that. So I didn't record it. Jim Cramer, federal, state, and municipal government should offer a sales tax holiday for small businesses grossing less than $500,000 annually. It would encourage patronage of those who need it. And he thinks it's a constructive idea. A tax holiday would be so much fun, guys. Can you imagine? That'd be a lot of money for me, I think. Not that it's something I've ever calculated, but okay, so they're kind of creeping up on that 42. Remember that was yesterday's close. That's why they're being a little creepy around here and not seeing stops and everything. Yeah, there's Cat Turd saying, I can't wait until Barr releases names of all the liberal journalists and Democrat politicians. Antifa has been like, they think that something is coming, but I don't know if it actually does.
Stickball says I like Trump cause he placed tariffs on a lot of countries that are allies, even Canada, but he excluded Australia from all tariffs for some reason.
I don't think that Australia, that we have a beef, any specific beef with them.
Stickball says remember that?
The ones with Canada, that was really silly.
Algo Lover says Friday 2:55 p.m. Algo Lover S if buyers maintain bid above 2,992, then 3,093 target. If 2,992 breaks before that target trades, then anticipate a deeper pullback. Nerd face still valid.
You say so. We should come over here and check and see what the volatility is now. Volatility a little bit higher
Algo
than
Lover
it was.
says range bound until one or the other trades. Okay sign.
A little bit higher than it was.
Stickball says what's the beef with Canada then lol.
Was over like
RJ Wheel says
lumber.
Crocodile Dundee is his favorite movie. Imagination of Lurid says what happened to Obama Gate?
3061.
Algo Lover says HAGD, thumbs up.
And 3,000. Ugh. A little concerned. What's this downside one? 3,005. Given the way that things were going on Friday, that volatility opened up higher is very concerning. Very concerning to me. ISM manufacturing due at the top of the hour. Analysts are focusing on the speed and direction of travel. Let's see here. From Rand's News Squawk, the extent of the pandemic loom has already been heavily discounted by the market, and instead traders focuses the direction and speed of travel. U.S. data prices have risen over the last 2 weeks, and risk assets seem more asymmetrically sensitive to reopening the recovery developments, progress on treatments, testing, and tracing. This has underpinned the recent rally in the S&P 500 despite historically stretched PE valuations, negative headline risk, and a limited appetite in Washington for another hefty fiscal injection.
Kevin Wimmer says how long are they going to tease us with a new all-time high in the Nasdaq? Since last week only 200 points away.
And now the headline is expected to rise 43.0 from 41.5 previous month. Prices are seen to rise from 37.0 to 35.3. Employment is expected to rise 35 from 27.5. Market gauge of manufacturing activity rebounded more modestly than regional Fed surveys, with manufacturers reporting market declines in client demand, the second sharpest reduction in new orders since the global financial crisis, and a lack of new work leading to increased layoffs. The lower working hours, while businesses only slowly return to work. Regional Fed manufacturing surveys also all bounced back in May, although they do not always align with the ISM. The incoming economic data suggests that April will mark the pandemic bottom. Supplier delivery times quirks posted the April ISM report significantly, but is not as significant of strong demand. It highlights damaged supply chains. Non-manufacturing is expected to rise to 44 from 41.8, as with the manufacturing ISM. Supplier delivery times quirks boosted the April ISM report significantly, but is not a signal of strong demand. It highlights damaged supply chains. So they are looking for indications that stuff is moving around, I guess. I think that they mean something that I don't understand when they say is on the direction and speed of travel. Okay. There must be something in the something specific in the ISM number that I'm not familiar with.
Imagination of Lurid says, why are no bears redirecting protesters to the Fed banks?
Because it's a communist revolution, imagination. It's Antifa thinks that they're getting their communist revolution and they're trying to foment a communist revolution. That's why they're attacking businesses, because that's the bourgeois. The bourgeois and the landowners that, it's the equivalent of the owners that they would lynch during the communist revolutions. People, when you ask why loot small businesses, well, that's why, guys. They're communists. Hmm. No, I was like, where's that little line on the wall behind me? But it's there. Well, we still got about 4 minutes till that news. I wonder, let's see how much they pull for it. Yeah. It's a little interesting that the volume ended up being at 28.5 instead of this 29. I'm going to put that right there because it was like that on Friday as well. There just seems to be a lot of interest in that area. Just waiting. I'm like trying to recover my breath here while we're getting into that mode where I feel like you can't breathe, It's a little warm in here. Feel like maybe a little bit too calm. Okay, 1 minute.
Stickball says, IDK how we did it, but we only have 7.2k confirmed cases here. When the outbreak started, everyone was saying Australia was going to be the worst affected due to having close ties to China and Asia.
Well, I think for starters,
Stickball says lots of Chinese students that travel back and forth.
warm weather, it reduces the spread far more than people thought, and the social distancing measures limits the spread far more than we thought. As far as I can tell, the only reason why we had a lot of cases in the United States was
Stickball says,
because
but
it
it's
got
winter.
into nursing homes. Well, it didn't start in winter. It's only kind of going into winter now in Australia, right? And even then, it doesn't get that cold in winter in Australia, does it? Yeah. Overall, it does kind of seem like that things went much better than expected. I think that's why they're trying to move on to something else so quickly. Because none of those protesters cared about the coronavirus.
Stickball says it's more to do with the sun and UV rays.
Yeah, that's probably true too.
Stickball says not heat.
UV rays kill that. Well, it does last longer in cold air, though, is my understanding. Okay, the interesting move. Okay, so here's the numbers. Manufacturing PMI 41.3 versus expected 43, so pretty close in line. Manufacturing employment is less than expected at 32.1 versus a 35, and the manufacturing prices is higher than expected at 40.8 versus 37. Ooh, are we getting inflation? Are we getting inflation, low employment, and inflation due to central bank easing? That would be a problem. So far, though, it appears that the E-mini is ignoring. I think I'm going to do that.
Imagination of Lurid says temperature def plays a role in the survival of any life form, viruses included. RJ Wheel says I think that contributes to the rioting. Leaving the house with a mask on pre-looting makes it easier to get in the mood to tempt fate with street and store cameras.
Maybe. I think that these people that are rioting, it's really like there are people that have been rioting, quote unquote, since Donald Trump got elected. And this is the first time that they have had any kind of larger movement on which to latch onto.
Stickball says direct sunlight is needed to destroy it. I've heard that Ford has modded cop cars to use the engine to heat up the inside to 133 degrees.
Darn, I did not get filled. The E-mini is buying, well, okay. We're fine. So I missed that one. Oh, I actually might not want that.
RJ Wheel says agree, Seth.
Play out. Okay, that did not quite work the way that I wanted. Really wish I got 28.5. Oh well.
RJ Wheel says if this doesn't get stopped, it's going to switch from Floyd to anti-Trump, anti-whole system protest.
Well, it already is a whole system, anti-whole system protest. I mean, really, what we saw over the weekend, I really don't see how you can say that it's just about Floyd at this point. And now people are going to be upset because there was like this thing where the National Guard was telling everybody to go in their houses, and so they were shooting people. Well, I don't think they like shot people per se, but kind of gave warning shots to people sitting on their porch. And I mean, it's definitely well beyond Floyd at this point. I think I was early on that one.
RJ Wheel says right-wing militia guys are looking at city maps. Itching to sandbag and set up guns.
Oh, sure. Well, they were all saying, where can I go to protect my local business? Like, They wanna go, and people in Texas were doing it. If something happens like that, like somebody tries to loot a business and a militia kills somebody, that could be a change, yeah. Well, I'm a little bit surprised about my
Imagination
prices.
of Lurid says the tricky part is the stricter the government enforces, the crazy the protesters get.
Yeah, it's so true, right? But this is the issue is that the crazier the protesters get, the more that the public will feel that the police is justified in taking extreme measures against it. It's like a chicken and egg sort of a thing. So, listen, when the communist regime was falling, so the way that this went down was that Gorbachev was implementing reforms, and the communists did not like it, and so the communists tried to overthrow Gorbachev from power and tried to do a coup. And there were some other politicians, like I forget the name of the guy that ended up becoming that first president of the Russian Federation or whatever. But he he organized protests. People went out into the streets, and the police were out there, like they were out in tanks and everything. And they said, "Be really nice to the police." And so they would bring the military like treats and food, and they were really nice to them. Listen, because I would like to see something change too. Okay. But like, let's be smart about it. Let's do things that are effective. Rioting, not effective. Being really nice to the cops, actually very effective. Okay. Go, if you're a protester, do this. Bake some cookies, give them to the cops at the protest. Try and have a discussion with the cops and learn about the challenges that they deal with and what are some things that they can do to try and fix it when a cop really is abusing power and there needs to be change. How can you fix that, right? And talk to them about it, and don't be violent. That is going to do way more for your cause. Okay, so this is a pretty good up move there. You're pulling back already a little bit. Oh yeah, it was Boris Yeltsin. You're right.
Stickball says the cops at the front line are just taking orders though. RJ Wheel says power always come down to power being able to get army to shoot people. Or at least maintain the perception.
I mean, at this point, they're just trying to maintain order, and they're not going to shoot people. I don't think that the army or the military is going to shoot people, but they're going to do what is necessary to maintain the peace. That is not a battle that you can win. I'm sorry. And these guys that think that this is like a revolution and all, you're crazy. You're crazy, and you're harming your cause, and you need to stop. Be nice to the police, guys. I guarantee you. You go and of course you protest and have your opinion and make your case, but be nice to the police. It will get you so much farther. Okay, because all these people at home, tell you, we're selfish. Humans are selfish. They're not going to care about something that happened.
RJ Wheel says necessary includes shooting people. If it comes to that.
I don't think they're going to do that, because you start shooting people, that makes it so much worse. No, they're not going to shoot people. Look, it's really hard to get somebody to care about some injustice that happened on the other side of the country when people are there in their neighborhood destroying their neighborhood. What are they going to do? They're going to say the cops should do whatever is necessary to protect my neighborhood. right? The reason that this is a problem in the first place is because we have accepted that the cops can abuse their power a little bit because we need the safety. Okay? So, no, don't play that game. Don't play that game.
RJ Wheel says you were comparing notes on the fall of
Well,
USSR.
they didn't shoot anybody,
If
though,
the
did they?
Republic is in that much danger, they have to shoot a few.
I mean, that was the whole thing, was that in the fall of the USSR, because the people never came out into the streets, but they came out into the streets and it wasn't violent at all.
RJ Wheel says I don't think it will either, but you brought up an empire collapsing. Kaka Silva says hi.
Hello, Kaka.
RJ Wheel says because the army refused.
Right. I mean, I think that they did say to do stuff, but the army refused because they were nice to them. I'm just telling you, man. You go and you attack a local business.
RJ Wheel says the army stood down.
When you attack a local business, you are harming and turning against you the very people that you need most to convince.
RJ Wheel says the people surrounded the Kremlin.
Yep. And there was like tanks and everything out there. All the pictures that I've ever seen of that were protesters giving cookies to the military in tanks. I have seen a couple of
Imagination of Lurid says maybe a reformation with an almost equivalent size of internal affairs create a stricter police to police the police that could help possibly.
Yeah, well, so one of the recommendations that has been made very frequently is to have a civilian oversight board. They have that in Salt Lake City. The problem is much larger than that, right? This is where I'm saying I think that you're fighting against something that is so much bigger than just a systemic racism, and that is people's propensity to give up safety or to give up rights in exchange for safety. They give cops the benefit of the doubt, and probably always will. So if those are the
Kaka
problems,
Silva
you
says
have
this man
to.
is streaming without taking a trade and he has over 6K views.
Who are you
Lucas
talking
says
about?
did
Me?
you see that vid where some thugs tried to break in somewhere, a lady went outside to stop them and they began beating her.
Oh yeah, with the wood. Yeah, that one was really disturbing. And then there was another video of a guy in Houston. He drives up to his place, pulls a shotgun out of his truck, and shoots 2 warning shots
Lucas
into
says
the air, and the
yes.
protesters move on. There was another one because people were saying, you shouldn't be defending your business with a gun like that's really cowardly and stuff. But there was like these Italian guys in one city where they were standing out in front of their business with guns, and people thought it was very threatening. But they looted the businesses next to them and they skipped them. Like, you got to understand, if you have like the guy with the sword, that was dumb. Okay. But if you have a gun, people know that, or at least believe that you're going to kill
Kaka
them.
Silva says his YouTube is stock marked live.
Oh. Well, so I don't always take a trade. It's kind of interesting, the ones that end up being watched, though, because there are a lot of YouTube channels that get a lot of views that aren't doing anything at all. And I don't know how they got to where they are. Probably, maybe they were more interesting than me. I don't know. I don't really stick around and watch to see what they're doing because they don't want to do what other people are doing anyways.
Kaka Silva says yeah.
Traders having trouble connecting to investor RT to Rhythmic this morning. Please read the following.
Imagination of Lurid says bot farms.
Could be bot farms, or you do something at the start that gets you going, and then once you have enough viewers, I mean, the number of subscribers that you have definitely has an impact on it. I know that at least for our channel, that the retention is extremely high. When I look at other YouTube creators, the they don't have even a quarter of the retention that we do. You guys show up literally every day. It's because you guys are serious about trading, I think. Getting a little bit of fight in this at the moment.
RJ Wheels says Winston Mom musings too.
Yeah, well, Winston coming around helped the channel a lot, didn't it? One of the things that really helps again is if you click that like button. Clicking that like button
Kaka
makes a
Silva
big
says I
difference.
could not watch. He is talking long-term investing but calling self-trader and he has many views.
Well, and that's another
Stick
thing
Bal
is
says business insurance. This here is my business insurance, pulls out shotgun.
if I was talking about individual stocks and trying to give you guys tips and stuff, I bet there'd be a
RJ
lot more
Wheels
interest.
says hit those likes.
I bet you there'd be a lot more interest. People don't really care to talk about bonds and what the main flows in the markets are and a macro perspective. That's not interesting to your everyday investor. But we're not targeting those people. We want people that want to get good at day trading and trading futures in particular.
Kaka Silva says yeah.
And you know what? I feel like that we have such a good community, and I feel really lucky to have you guys. And I don't want to say that it was like all my doing, but I do think that the fact that we've been able to attract so many good traders says that the way that we've been running it and the type of person that we're trying to attract, that we're getting them. So I'm definitely don't want to. I could go and start talking individual stocks and we could get more views, but I don't think that that would really ultimately be useful, right? Okay, they are doing quite a bit of fight around here at 30.45. Interestingly enough, I thought that new high at 30.48 was pretty good and that they could continue on. And the way that they're trading, that's certainly possible, but it's been a little bit more choppy than I would expect. I
RJ
would
Wheels
expect
says
more of a
stock
bear
chart rooms
flag.
compared to futures rooms is like comparing NFL to hockey. There's way more NFL fans.
Oh yeah, you're totally right, RJ. Will. Yeah. Well, but the thing is that that's just the way that people think about it. This I'm trying to make this
Vincenzo
case.
C says you've attracted me so things aren't perfect.
Oh, Vincenzo, don't knock yourself down. We are happy to have you either way, Vincenzo. Everybody contributes.
Kaka Silva says thanks to you I am now more careful with trade. Stick Bal says you're the only few that fulfills this niche.
Mm-hmm. You're the only one that fulfills this niche. Yeah. Well, it's not like I don't have competition. There's some many, like for instance, Anthony Crudelli. He's a futures guy. He has a really good channel. I'm actually really, really happy that he's changing some of his
Stick
content
Bal
up.
says others are forex trading.
He's posting like specific edges, and he's bringing in big names on them as well. He is providing you guys serious value, and
Vincenzo
I
C
love it.
says speculator Seth is the relaxed trader.
The relaxed trader. Sometimes I'm not relaxed.
Stick
Man.
Bal says FT71 is your competition.
Oh, FT71 is, well, the FT71 is kind of a different thing because he is more about his room, and I don't really think that he has too much of a focus on his YouTube. He doesn't make anything on his YouTube other than his morning synopsis, right? He's much more focused on developing his room, which is okay, but I don't think it's quite the same thing. Right. Like I try and make specific videos like here is a concept that can be really valuable to your trading. That's the way that I try and look at it. Like I made that video that says, look, the main thing that you want to look is where is the money going to? Is there money coming into your market? That's when you can make money. You know, those sorts of video. Anthony is going down the technical analysis route, actually, right? He's saying, here's a technical analysis thing that I use and you should look at it too. I'm trying to avoid that. So I'm trying to go even a more different direction than that. I'm trying to be, here are the fundamentals of the market. Here are the forces that are pushing things. And we're trying to base our trades off of that. And we're trying to learn as much and have as much information as we can so that I can provide to you guys edge by having a better ear on the market's pulse rather than trying to rely on technical analysis signals that, in my opinion, are shoddy at best.
RJ Wheel says that Matt trades Guy as competition. Stickball says I just watched the recent Anthony Crudely vid with him Dalton. RJ Wheel says pretty dry room. Stickball says taking about market profile.
He might be. There's somebody in chat that has been posting pretty okay trades, but there's some suspicion that he's trading sim because some of the fills that he claims are a little hard to believe. Yes, that was so Matt trades. I don't think I've heard of that one. I get recommended a lot of traders, but on YouTube. But
Stickball says that Matt Guy is viewbotting.
Oh, what's that? I don't know. You know, it's kind of something weird goes on how it goes back and forth because we were getting for a time period back when things were really crazy, we were almost always getting 50. And now we've gone back to usually 30 current viewers. So I don't know what causes that, but it might just be that there are less people interested in that kind of content right now. And if the markets go crazy again, maybe we'll start getting a lot of viewers again. Now, on the other side, the video about what to look for in a trading computer is doing extremely well. Like my video that was like the software platform one, that video has done really well. And this video is outpacing that by like
RJ Wheel says it's called Trades by Matt.
Okay. Well, I don't really care. One of the issues that I have is like I would like to keep an eye on my competition and keep an edge, but at the same time, I also don't really want my content to be influenced by what other people are doing. You know what I mean? So like I'll be watching a video and they're talking about RSI or something, and I'm immediately like, well, this doesn't provide value to me, and I tune out and I don't watch it. And because I intentionally don't want my YouTube channel to be like anybody else's. And I don't even want that to have that like benchmark in my mind of, well, this guy does this, so I should do this, or, you know, or even be thinking that maybe my idea came from somebody else, you know, to stay unique. And it's the same thing with the market. Is like my take on it now is like when you're using technical analysis and order flow, it is very much an issue of going with the crowd. And you don't want to go with the crowd, right? Well, going with the crowd works a lot of the time, but then it ultimately usually isn't profitable because the best opportunities are when you're trading against the crowd and the crowd is wrong, right? So wouldn't it be better to have a method
Wheel says, I like this room.
Has nothing to do with technical analysis or order flow and is based entirely on the fundamentals and identifies for you in a period when the crowd is likely wrong and you can see the point at which the crowd is about to turn, and you can take advantage of it that way. It's a way better trade, right? But to do that trade, you have to understand the fundamentals and why the flows are moving where they are.
Lucas says don't follow the crowd, follow the money.
Yeah, follow the money. Ultimately, though, to make money, I think that you have to make a prediction of a sort. You're making trades that, where you're predicting that you have a certain percentage expectancy. And I'm just, there's no reason that
Stick Val
any
says don't forget about the winner's curse.
There's no reason that any expectancy in technical analysis should hold. There's no reason that it should. There's no fundamental reason that a particular trade based off of technical analysis should maintain its expectancy over time. In fact, based on what we know about the way that the market works, the most likely scenario is that over time that edge will be taken away by the market. Yeah. Should refresh this here. Okay, so this is looking like a pretty good, solid ascending triangle, huh? By the way, 5 likes. Thank you guys very much. It does help the video.
Stick Val says the expectancy is diminished by the winner's curse.
Sure, yeah, maybe. There's definitely a thing, like I've been told by automated traders that you want to be careful how you size up, because you will you'll get too big and the market will notice and start hunting you. And if the market starts hunting you, if the expectancy of your system all of a sudden changes, then you've already taken it too far. So they're saying, like, bump it up little bit by little bit, and then as soon as you start to see something change, back off, because that means that they're catching on and you're trading too much size. So you got to back off, and then at that point, that's the most that it can make. But I don't know. I really haven't seen a system that is
305,790 says Seth, what are your thoughts about Bookmap and if their platform is really offering an edge? Seems like a lot of traders use it.
Well, the Bookmap thing is really interesting. There is one thing that Bookmap offers that interests me, and that is that they claim to have a method to show you that an order was really a stop market order and not just a market order. And that is interesting to me. I don't know if there's actually edge in that. Maybe the stops will end up being exactly where we think they are, and there's not anything really terribly interesting about it. But since I don't have access to it, I can't really backtest it and see. But a lot of the other features, like identifying areas of absorption and icebergs and things like that, and just the way that it shows it to you, there are definitely ways in almost every platform that offers any kind of order flow trading, and that includes NinjaTrader itself, to see those sorts of things. And so in terms of edge, does it provide you edge? Probably not, but it depends on your preference. I like to trade on the DOM. I think that the order edge execution on the DOM is a
K9
advantage.
says, have you heard of Gary Norden?
I love Gary Norden. I have very much intentionally tried to base my trading off of Gary Norden. I haven't taken his course that's up at Jigsaw, but I think I'm going to, even though I'm not a huge proponent of buying education. Anyways, so for me, because I am very focused on the DOM, Bookmap isn't really very interesting to me. I like the DOM because I can sit here and focus on my execution and the exact moment that I want to take it, and still see the way that the market is trading from one glance. And I don't think that you can do that any other way. And I can see how correlated markets are trading, and I think that that's an important piece too. Okay. But that doesn't mean that Bookmap is a bad platform. It's kind of like if you're starting out and you're wondering which platform you want to go for, and there's something about the really pretty charts that attracts you to it, then I say, hey, why the heck not? Okay. But if you're like already on Jigsaw and you're wondering, well, would the things that are in Bookmap provide me edge, or if they bring that feature over into Jigsaw, will that provide me edge? No. It's just a personal preference, really. So you want the best you do Jigsaw. If you want the best looking Vista chart, that it is Bookmap, but that chart in and of itself doesn't necessarily provide you edge. Says thank you. I agree. Yeah. Now the one thing though is that they keep saying that there's a stops. I don't know if there's anything to that or not. They had a webinar on Friday. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
Stickball says Bookmap shows the market depth in the best possible way, and it's super fast and well coded. But it does not give any information advantage.
Yeah. But another deeper thing here is that I am trying to say that the argument that I'm making right now is that the amount of edge that you can derive purely off of market generated information is very limited. We as retail traders have overestimated the amount of edge that can be pulled off of purely market generated information. And the amount of edge that you can pull out of having an understanding of the market as a whole and what flows are being driven and what market correlations are involved, and you combine that with technical analysis, I think that the amount of edge from my experience doing this so far is tremendous and severely underestimated by the retail market. That there are many, many retail traders that if they just looked at what was going on and read the news every once in a while, they would do better.
Lucas says if you go down the Gary Norton route, I think you will see how market-generated data can give you tremendous amount of edge at really high win rate %.
So did you take his course, Lucas? Because one of the whole things is that everything that I look at from Gary Norton is that the technical analysis doesn't really give you anything. But I don't know what perhaps his view of technical analysis is charts, There's definitely things that he looks at that I don't understand, I think. We'll see when we get it. I'm planning on doing it right now. I would have enough saved up in a month or so to buy it. So you want to help me? You can give me donations. No, don't do that. And then I would feel like I'm begging for donations. Don't do it.
Lucas says no, but I am using some concepts that I think are in line to what he probably teaches. I scalp really short term now.
So
but I do want to take his course to improve.
When I was looking at your results that you had posted in the chat room, I was quite impressed. So the guy that John that I talked to that learned directly from Gary said that he was taught to go for equal risk reward and 70% win rate. And I was trying to do that one day. I got it, but then most of the days it was just 50%, and I don't know how they do it. I have no clue how they do it. And he was looking for 4 ticks in the E-mini. But you were going for like 2. So I don't know. We'll see what we get there. I think though that it's not going to be what we think. I think that there's a real risk if you have too great expectations set up around it that you will be disappointed, in fact. Because I don't think that there's some key technical analysis thing that he's looking at to base the trades on.
Stickball says is his strategy providing liquidity? Lucas says I need Peter to change some stuff that will help me, but yes, equal risk reward.
Okay.
RJ Wheel says anyone else have AMP Futures connectivity issues? CQG.
Not with AMP. There was some stuff on Twitter about issues with Rhythmic and Investor RT, but not with CQG today.
Lucas says it has more to do with being able to quickly change the different types of strategies because sometimes I do spot good 1 to 2 point trades that I want to take. Stickball says he has a book called The End to the Bull.
Yeah, I read his book, The End of the Bull.
Stickball says $13 on Amazon.
He has another book that's basically why technical analysis doesn't work, but it doesn't look like it's available anymore, and he's writing a new one.
Stickball says, is it good?
I think it's good, but
RJ Wheel says I haven't had charts yet today. Got AMP sorted. Now Ninja. I ran replay on weekend. Always after running replay. Stickball says was it good? Stickball says the book.
yeah, so the book is good, but again, there's like I felt like that most of what he said in the book was things that I kind of already knew, or at least knew intuitively, and he just put them into ways that were so much more clear to me, I guess. Anyways.
Stickball says like what?
Well, he says he kind of lays out a framework of here's what you got to do to try and get good at trading. Understand all of the news and things that are impacting the markets. Have watch lists to help you keep track of a large array of different parts of the market. And he kind of, and then he talks about how the market prices in things, that they don't really price in things, but instead what they do is they generate an expectation, and then when the data proves their expectation wrong, they adjust based on what the new expectation is. Anyways, I think it's a really good thing for regular people. I think for people like most of the people on our channel, it's going to be more interesting to you because to see what Gary Norton thinks about the world, rather than it'll set you on the right path. That it's really written for those people that are trading forex or stocks and are doing all sorts of crazy things and not having any success because they're completely engrossed in technical analysis and don't really understand a thing about the market. Most of you guys in futures kind of already know a lot of the things that he says.
Lucas says, yeah, it's not about edge.
But I think the point, and I could be wrong, but I think the point that Gary Norton is trying to make is that the edge is, are you good at trading? which to him is, are you able to look at a piece of information and understand how the market is going to adjust that piece of information and predict what people are going to do and take advantage of it that way, and to detect in periods based on the context when people are trying to pull a fast one on you. Basically, how good is your ability to evaluate what something is worth, rather than he doesn't look at it like when he talks about the first time that I became a trader. His story is that a stock took a big plunge at the end of trading and he thought that the closing price was bad, so he priced it higher. He got filled on his bids because of that. And then later, it turned out that somebody was manipulating the price and they had made all of the other market makers short, except for him. And so he ended up making a ton of money off of it. So his entire reason was based on evaluation.
Stickball says in his course description, it says it teaches you how to use the order queue.
Well, that's might be something.
Stickball says, yeah, I've seen that video too.
Yeah. So he's saying it's talking about deciding where value is. His whole thing is trading is about making a call on where value is. He always talks about value. And I think that his course provides a framework for you to determine where you think value is based on X factors. And including one of them probably is the current trend.
Lucas says, and I feel most traders don't realize of this. You either become good through practice or you give up. Lucas says Gary is right. Let me tell you something, Seth. You already know everything you need to know about trading and the markets. What you need to become better is not coming out of more knowledge.
Oh, and
Lucas says, but I feel you are on the right path.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the thing is that I really feel like with the way that I want to trade, like I'm just realizing in treasuries that a lot of the things that I really want to trade based off of, I just don't know. You know, like today, what are the major flows dominating the treasury market today? And I don't really know. There was a pretty good drop on that remdesivir news. And I really do not know why it did that. There must be some sort of Forex flow that I just can't see, right? I guess that's a good thing. I guess that means you're becoming more aware of your ignorance in certain areas. But I do feel like and like one of the examples was that I was watching one of Gary Norton's videos, and he's told me something about the treasury market and something that impacts the treasury market that I didn't know was really a significant thing. That was like, that would have been useful to have known like 3 years ago. And I can only get that information on what those things are, what kind of flows are happening by listening to News Squawk. So I'm not going to say that the more information doesn't help. But I do think that it's not about finding a specific signal that
Stickval says if you have an order at the front of the queue with hundreds of contracts behind, then you have an edge there because you can use the orders behind you in queue to get out at break even.
Sure. That's kind of almost impossible to really do though, dude. I mean, like look at right here, for instance. Okay, 2000 by 1500. Okay. So what if I think it's going to go down? I don't really want to hit into 26.5, do I? I want to sell at 27. But look, if I got in there, it was 1300 before that, right? I'm going to be at the back. I'm not going to be filled yet. I'm always going to be at the back. How do you get to the front of the queue? I'll explain to you how you get to the front of the queue. It's 886 right here. You know that they're not actually going to clear 27, and so you click sell there, and then they move back down, and then they never fill you. So when you get to the front of the queue, it actually kind of ends up being a bad thing. Because if they come back down there and then they come back up, what are the chances that this time they revisit it that they're going to go through you? Then wouldn't you want to just cancel your order and move it up? That's what happens, right? So then you have to play this game of anytime that it's leaving the price, right? It's going to be like 1300. If we're going to buy up, if it's 1300 right now, I could get 1300 and then it ticks up. And then more will stack on top of me to get it to 2600. So I would be like halfway through the queue. And does being halfway through the queue really give me that significant of an edge? And the issue is that in my experience, it really doesn't. So playing with the queue is kind of a weird thing. That's why I tend to wait for the areas where there's a value. There's a clear value shown, and I can trade against that, and I have a pretty good chance of getting filled on the other side of value, then that's where I try and take those. And that actually does help. if I have the larger overall read correct, then those trades usually work really, really well. But it's getting to know what those larger overall flows are that's really hard, because if there are some guys that are going to come in and do some corporate bond issuance their hedging is going to push the markets down, like there's no way to see that that's going to happen through the order flow. And when you see the order flow, you're not going to know that that's what it is. So you have to know that it's coming and then look at the order flow and see what you're expecting to see confirmed. You know? Almost. They look like they want more, for sure. Hmm.
Stickball says, well, if you can predict where there will be a lot of orders placed, maybe you see buy orders begin to be moved up gradually.
Maybe you can see where there will be a lot of orders placed. Maybe you can see buy orders begin to be moved up gradually. Not sure I completely follow. I try when I think about value, because I think value, I say that's where they agree. So I'm looking for places where there's
Stickball
evidence
says
that
you
they
can have a
agree.
conditional stop loss that stops you out if the lid.
Sure. I do try and take it as she goes sometimes. I haven't really caught a really good as she goes trade in a while, though. To really get the as she goes trade, you really got to get some flow behind it, and the treasuries just haven't had that in a long time. Well, okay, well, they get an okay sell here. I can do this. That really would be prudent, but what is the LIDD? I don't know if now is the time to try and think that sort of a thing through. I'm not in treasury queue mode right now. So the thing is, the way that it trades in the E-mini and the way that it trades in the treasury is so different. Because if you try and get those spots in the E-mini, that usually doesn't work. They're going to go through you and you're going to get stopped out. Because in the E-mini, seeing the size there is actually people with trades already on looking to get filled.
Stickball says, haha.
You know what I mean?
Stickball says then your order will stop you out at break even, so very minimal loss.
The Swedish economy.
Stickball says if the liquidity falls below a certain amount, so for example if 3050 falls below 50 contracts, etc.
Oh yeah. No, that's yeah. I'm always really hesitant to put that sort of one in when I'm just because then the probability of me staying in the trade is really low. You know what I mean? I'll put it like one or two below and then I'll do that. But that's Patrick Wooney saying the Swedish economy did not contract like the US and other lockdown nations. Norway's public health director now says the lockdowns were not necessary to curb the spread of COVID-19, making lockdowns the most expensive failed experiment ever. According to Norway, I don't know if we're far enough along to know that yet still. maybe the end of the summer we would know. I really wonder what would have happened if Trump had followed his gut, because Trump really didn't want to do the lockdowns, right? He was convinced by the experts. If he had said, no, I don't believe you, and fought against it, and they would have fought and fought and fought and made such a big deal, what would have happened? Well, it probably would have gone a lot farther, and we'd probably still be in a not sure. Like if we'd gone the Norway route, With the pandemic raging, the Philippines is paying people to move out of overcrowded Manila. Oh, really? Wow. I have a friend that lives there. How is... Well, I can see that we definitely have good advanced decline today. We're still okay, but it might take a really long time. Oh, and we're well past the, okay, we're well past
Lucas
the
says sorry I had to go
reversion
away.
period.
I think you will be disappointed if you buy GN's manual. I've read some other PPL being like, that's all. I already know this.
Right. Yeah, and the big question in my mind is what's in it that would justify charging $1,000 for it? But who did you talk to? Because I really haven't talked to anybody that has since just bought it. I talked to people that claimed that they were going to get it because they thought that they were getting it from some scammer. I was like, no thanks. And then it did turn out to be like a scam. Okay. I'm getting the volume here again. Oh, there actually was a decent amount up at 48. Interesting. It's kind of a really messy chart today. You guys are probably saying stuff and the reader stopped. Yep. Gary himself has a video of him saying that folks were kind of disappointed he has a more active YouTube account now. Yeah, it's a good... I did see that. I don't remember what he was saying. That's where I'm like, oh, man, I don't know. I'm a little torn about it. I've just found, well, I guess one thing is that I've kind of been trying to follow some of the principles from his other book, and that has been useful, and maybe that's enough. I don't know. I just kind of feel like it would kill me. Like I'll always be wondering what's in it and if it's worth it. And I kind of think that I'm probably is going to be mostly stuff that I would expect, but that every once in a while there's just going to be that little teeny tiny gem that makes the difference. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's the little things, and people might not realize. Gary himself might not realize the things that actually matter. One of the things that I wonder about is that he was saying something about Q math, and I'm wondering what that's about. Is he looking for a period place where the amount on bid is like a quarter of the amount on offer and that sort of a thing? Treasuries ticked down there and are kind of uh, resting there at 26, but showing no real clues that they're going to hit into 26. A little unusual. But there's been some icebergs there in the past. We'll see if they're still interested in that area. Let's double check volatility here. It is falling back down. I guess they're getting that resistance at the 49 area because that's where there was kind of the close. That was a volatility target from the day before. In fact. I wonder the same, Lowell. I think I would probably have to travel to Australia if I ever wanted to be trained by him. Yeah. Well, the other thing is he did have a more active YouTube account. I don't think he's posted anything in the past weeks or so. It was like he had a burst and then he lost interest in it, or I don't know. That happens. I understand. I mean, I'm doing the same thing, right? I'll have a good run of posting good videos, and then stuff kind of gets in the way. I really do need to make this video on strategies, backtesting strategies. I have a couple of other ones that I want to make, but they're not like huge ones. Like the two that I've made this year were big ones. These were ones that are like, these are the videos that are like the things that where I really believe that I can provide that I'm the most knowledgeable on and can provide the most value to people and can be staples for my channel. So now we're kind of getting into the things that I think were important to be on there, but are kind of on the lower end of the list in terms of usefulness. And then we're going to have to get into the what do I feel like doing or repurposing content and things like that. Maybe more videos about what's going on right now, you know? What is Gary's Organic Financial Group about? So I think he's gone back and forth about, so they were doing like an education course because he wanted to provide education on some of these things. They would provide like little like teasers, slides, the teasers that I read that were really good. There was one from these guys that was about spreads that was really good, but then before you really got to the good stuff, that was the end of it. So you don't know how good the good stuff actually was. But the stuff that you already knew, the way that it was presented was really good. And I was like, oh yes, I knew that, but I should probably try and trade more based off of that and that sort of thing, you know? But then that didn't happen. And so I think that was then when he made the Organic Financial Group, and he didn't really go anywhere with it. Where can you find this? I don't know anymore. I don't know if it's out there anymore. And then he kind of got into this current place where he's apparently starting a hedge fund, and he's selling the course because Peter Davies convinced him to. And well, I think that was a big part of it, at least. There's a lot at 26 now. There's 4,000 there. The E-mini's still kind of dinking around there at 47. Anyways, I think that he's probably got a lot of his own stuff going on, and that what he ends up doing with the community kind of turns into this thing where, you know, in that moment he totally intends on, you know, going whole hog with it, but then it just ends up not being to work out like that, you know? With private tutoring is out of the equation, and probably for most retail traders, but it makes sense also. Most retail traders are not looking to trade like that at all. Well, yeah, and this is where I get to the guy that I know that learned from him directly spoke very highly of the whole process and showed me results, and he was getting 4 tickers, equal risk reward, 4 ticks, pretty close to 70% of the time. And I really have no clue how they do that. And I'm kind of sitting here like, What is it that he could possibly put in there that would help me get to that spot? Because if it is stuff that we all already know, then what? I don't know. Understand. Because we're all going through this and thinking, okay, well, let me try doing it. And I can't do it. Lucas is doing better at it than I am. I kind of went back to okay, let me just like focus way more on the news and everything. And ever since I did that, I've been doing amazing. So I don't know, guys. Like I did that experiment where I was doing the 4 tickers and that didn't work very well. And then ever since then, when I went to the just trying to trade the news, I guess I've done amazing. Maybe it's just luck. I don't know. They came so close to filling me there. Don't go for 4, begin with a less. Well, the thing was is that at that time, they were more than moving, you know. I wasn't always necessarily trying to catch momentum though. I was trying to catch absorption. So maybe it was the spots I was looking for. Maybe I really should have been looking more for strong trend continuation areas. Successful guru doesn't give all his trucks away. There's more money in selling fish daily than one-time rod purchases. Yeah. Well, but the way that his education was presented was like, I'm going to be doing a hedge fund and I don't need this information anymore, and I want the community to have it because it needs to be preserved. Because not very many people know it or are doing it. So I don't know, man. It could be yesterday when I was thinking about it, I was like, I should definitely do it. And I'm close to being where I could do it. But now this morning talking to you guys, I'm like, probably I shouldn't. I should probably continue to do what I'm doing until I struggle with it. I don't know. What is it exactly? He sells a course that's $1,000. Oh yeah, Ace was around on Friday, but it wasn't around when Lucas was there, so it's good that you guys caught each other today. I'm really frustrated that I didn't get the fill there at the top. I don't think it's over, but I'm kind of thinking, if they do fill me, they're definitely going to go through that spot, right? But now I have to start thinking about if they come all the way back, and even if they do go all the way up there, how long would I have to wait? Hmm. These trades as good as I can get nowadays, enjoying trading more than ever and working from home, which makes things easier. I hear you're teaching now. Oh yeah, working from home makes everything easier, right? Could organize some kind of group. I would definitely put 60 US bucks. I'm kind of thinking I would like to see more people try it. I don't know. Um, I mean, the other thing is that if I get it, I can do a review off, tell you guys, and that's another thing because people ask about it all the time. Oh man. Well, at the moment, it looks like the flows are turning against me. I guess if 3055 is being rejected, that's not a good sign. At the same time, though, there's the kind of spots where they might like randomly turn around. Like they're gonna like stop me out, and then maybe they'll randomly turn around. I'm not too upset about it. Mostly I take trades and help with stops and targets. I would definitely put together $60 for a group buy. Well, you'd need like 20 people. Apparently, Gary does does a webinar where you can ask him questions too, and that would make that would make it a little bit more worth it too. But I don't know. There's this one guy in the room, and he scalps using 200 contracts. And how many ticks is he looking for? As long as it's not published. Well, the thing is, it's not like a thing that you can download. It's something that you can only read on the Jigsaw website. That's going to be unfortunate if that's where it ends, but sometimes I guess that can just happen to you. I probably really should have taken it off up in here, but I'm not gonna freak out about it too much. The Treasury's catching a bid there might have been a clue, right? They definitely held that. And then when they moved up at 27. Now, the caveat to that is that even though there's a big order there at 26, they're not stacking on these spots. So I don't think that that's indicative of a trend necessarily. They may, starting from here again, may just move right back up. In fact, I think it's a really good chance. His scalps are set for 2 ticks. But what is his... Okay, but so then the question is, what is his win rate? And what is his stop? I've seen some people. I tell you what. RJ Wheel says every chat room has one of those guys, right? Because what happens is they set this really wide stop and it works really well for a while and they size up and then it doesn't work one day and they lose everything. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. Like, seriously. So many times. And this is usually the guy that feels like that seems to have massive success when they're just starting out, right? Well, I guess the other thing was, where did I get into that from? 3040. See, the 30, well, I don't know if I should have done it before the news, but then after the news, and then I got in at 3040. So really to get a really good safe spot today, I would have needed to have done it before the 8 o'clock news. We could have done that. I wasn't really so sure about a buy at that point. Now that it's done this, I think that I can just chalk it up to that there's not really strong enough opportunity, and to basically come out as a scratch is okay. And we could have managed that better. So in the future, let's say it comes up to there, we got to move it up, right? He claims he has mad success with it. I believe him because it's not very hard to get a 2-tick move at almost 6 spots. Yeah, but that's the one where it's like, okay, so you get two ticks. Where are you placing your stop, and what is your win rate? Because I'm a bet you $100 that his stop is further than his target. That he has a stop that's further away than 2 ticks. And I'm just telling you, if they have a stop that's further away than 2 ticks, at some point it catches up with you. %, he does. 100% he does. Ding, ding. Yeah, agreed. He does admit it about the stop, but he doesn't care. I get it. Risk versus profit. No, it's not that. It's the expectancy of that strategy is negative, right? So like if you are taking, let's say that you take 1 tick win and 2 tick lose, okay? So your risk reward factor is 0.5, okay? You have to win 80% of the time. Over 80% of the time to break even. Right? So to be successful with that strategy, you really have to size up. So yeah, when he loses, it's ugly. And when that day comes where he takes multiple losers in a row, and it will happen, they lose everything. And because they have no experience in dealing with losing and drawdowns and stuff, they're more likely to tilt. It's like that guy. You ever watched Molly's Room, or is that what it's called? The one about the girl that set up poker games. And there's this guy in there that is really good, and he's extremely conservative, but he just would cream them all. But the thing was that he was doing a very low risk strategy. And so when his low risk strategy failed, and it was this one time when it would fail, and it was extremely unlikely that it happened, but it happened, and then he completely goes on to tilt and loses everything. That's what tends to happen to that guy. I've seen it many times. We always warn against it. I don't know. I need to go back and see what it is about Gary. So here's the other thing is about the Gary Norton manual is that I would expect somebody that maybe doesn't know a whole lot to read it and not realize which things are valuable and which things are not. You know? So I would need somebody that's been in the room a long time and I feel like really understands order flow well to read it and say, you don't need to know this stuff. You've already figured those things out. Were the indicators in the room are pretty accurate? I forget what, because I looked at them and they looked like they were kind of similar signals to stuff that I've seen on a lot of places. If you don't have a higher win rate, it would blow you away. Yeah, it really does. But it's also why I also think that it kind of puts you in this mental mode because you don't want to be wrong, right? Like that's why you pick that strategy is because you're afraid of being wrong. I'm probably should be more afraid of being wrong than I am. He swears it works well. Of course it does. It's because he. The ones that it drives me nuts. I'm so triggered, aren't I? Do I seem really triggered? It's just because I know there's this guy that sells the courses based on that kind of a strategy, and he posts these results and is like, "Hey, it's super great," and then he never shows when it's blown up, and I mean it blows up. I mean it really falls apart. It's just all the time. No. You told me the name of the room, and I looked up the room, and I saw what their indicators were. I don't remember what they were, but they weren't like foreign concepts to me, if you know what I mean. They kind of looked like more order flow stuff. But I don't know. I'm still in the mode of I want to know the larger flows and then try and take something off of that, right? Like on this one right here. I'll tell you why I did what I did. The news came out. I didn't expect the market to be super great, but we were up, and then the news came out. It didn't affect anything, and then you had this thing right here. So I said, okay, that's probably the best I'm gonna get. So 30.40. So I got in at 30.40. They came just short of my target. I really thought 30.55. I really still think 30.55. In fact, maybe we could try and get a good spot. Like down here at 42 might not have been too bad. These sorts of things are great, to be honest. In this environment, at least, this candle cancel out sort of a thing is really good. Anyways, I bet you that it could come back up there, but just because it didn't do it, I think that I got about the best that I could have gotten, and it just, in that case, it didn't really end up being enough. And the thing where I had to have done better was managing the trade. And when it was up in here and it did this thing, that could have been a little bit more of a sign that there was going to be a deeper pullback. And of course, I thought that it was just going to do this and then it was going to go higher. It was wrong. That's just, you can't predict that. That's technical analysis. It's just random. Volume was absorbing up in there though. That was really where it was like, okay. They traded 13,000 up there, right? Oops. Should have gotten out at 48. Really should have gotten out at 48. What market is he using? ES? $5,000 trade, yeah. It's a lot. If he's really trading 200 contracts. I don't know, dude. I would not entirely believe him if he's saying 200 contracts. In fact, did he do it today? If he's saying it's 200 contracts and he's getting that all filled at once, he's full of shit. You would have a very, very difficult time with what's on the DOM right now. Just look at the DOM right now, right? How many of these prices have more than 200 contracts on them? 276. So you're telling me that you're going to put a limit order down for 276 and you're going to be all that, right? And you're not going to hit it with a market order. Hell no. I don't know if you did it today. I'm running the room. I don't get feedback from the traders. There's like 35 to 45 folks at a time. I think he's full of shit. I really do. I really honestly do. If he's saying 200 contracts, because if you went out and put a 200 lot on the DOM right there, okay, and all of a sudden the E-mini was reading, 350 contracts there, yeah, the market's going to react to that. I tell you what, they're going to go right for that guy and go more than 2 ticks through him. I guarantee you that. And you can't do it with the market orders. And for 2 ticks, he is probably on sim. He's probably trading that on sim and full of shit. Could be wrong. Don't really know. I don't know. I'm always eternally skeptical about things that sounds like bullshit. They're still kind of down. I'm wondering if this market is eventually going to turn down now. I don't really know, of course, but it shouldn't have been that difficult to get above 30.50, and it shouldn't be as hard to. Everyone is full of shit until proven is true. It's true, Ace. So now going back to this, could we have? The one that I hate is the way that it came back here was only briefly there and then it fell back down so quickly. Yeah, and this scalping should be quite fast. So if he doesn't scale in with 200 at once, the market could just move away 200 right now. Seems odd. Yeah. And not only that, Kevin, but think about if you don't have to worry about the queue. You just have to worry about it touching, and the simulator thinks that you've. If you're using the Ninja Trader simulator, and all that it needs to do is touch, and it thinks you're filled. Yeah. He's the only one who isn't a Ricky in the room. Yeah. I don't even need to. You know what I'm thinking, right? You know what I'm thinking. I don't even have to say it. Lucas says, "Have a good day." Yeah, I think it's time for us to get going. Okay, well, thank you guys. It was a good discussion today. We're just gonna play the summer by year, and we're just gonna save up and see what happens. Yeah. So there's a lot of things I really want. News Squawk. Are you gonna miss the oil settlement too? There was some movement in oil today, wasn't there? Yeah, quite a big range traded today. Several dollars, in fact. So there's some news about the oil stuff, and they don't know where it's going to go. Here's a 290 fill on the ZB this morning. You mean that somebody got filled with 290? Well, yeah, right there at 77.05. Or that somebody put the order up. I tell you what, the treasuries have been trading a little odd. I'm not quite sure I understand the reasoning behind all that. Is that a reason to go long? Well, we could have gotten a long on it, but it would only get a few ticks. We had tried buying it off at the open. We got creamed. Oh, here John has the picture. Yeah. He's showing the reconstructed tape. Oh. That looks like a robot right there. Yeah. We see those. That looks like a machine gun. Anyways. I don't think that the real and the price traded lower from there. Oh, really? So somebody was machine gun buying and then it fell. Yeah. But yeah, that's where I'm saying that it's like, unless you know what they're doing, right? It's like if you know what the context is and what people are trying to do that day, and then you see the order flow in the tape, you're like, I know exactly. There's this buyer, big buyer, and he wants to buy it because of X reason, and so I can buy it and it's going to go. That's the way we want to do it. But if you don't know what they're doing, then it could be like, somebody else is selling it because they need to hedge themselves because they're offering corporate bonds. And then the other guy, the market maker that's going against him, that's buying it, knows that and expects it to go back up 2 ticks. And if you don't know that, you try selling it and then it goes back up on you and you're stopped out and screwed. I feel like there are patterns that come up in the market that don't last long enough to be discovered and traded by algos. That might be true. Well, like you might see a pattern and it's like, it's only been doing that for a week and the algorithms haven't picked up on it. Yeah. But that again is like, you really want to know why. I think that you should have a theory about why. Because they had these people, for instance, that were trading the 350 move, right? They didn't know what was causing it. Now that you know what's causing it, do you really want to trade that? No. Now that you know what causes it, it's kind of like, oh, I should be taking my profits before that happens. I don't know. 3040 would not a bad spot, was it? If I wasn't, trade management and everything else like that, I don't think I did too bad today. All things considered. I'm just disappointed that I didn't get $50. Okay. See you guys tomorrow. Oh, no, well, I mean, I'll see some of you guys this afternoon. We'll do our news recap. I don't think that the real news has come through yet, but we'll see. And in the meantime, stay profitable.